Good day. Let me express my most sincere appreciation to the PharmAlliance network for inviting me to deliver the keynote address to your annual Retail Pharmacy Business Summit. It's important also for me to acknowledge the efforts of Mr. Jimmy Aigboje, one of your members, and should I say, shining lights, for ensuring that I actually am here, to deliver this address today. It was he who spoke so positively about the work that the PharmAlliance network has done over the years, and the fact that your annual conference has become really something of a major landmark or milestone as far as your industry is concerned. So congratulations for all the good work you have done over the years. And as I always say, for people who work hard and who work well, the reward for all your good work in the past is even more good work and hard work in the future. Now, I regret my inability to deliver this address real time and also to be physically present at your convening. It's due to circumstances completely beyond my control. As you meet at this very time, unfortunately, I've had to leave for Abuja. There is a process. We're trying to transform the performance of some aspects of government, and there is a very important meeting and process that requires my attention at this very time. Nonetheless, over the next 30 minutes, I will attempt, and I trust that God will back me in doing so, to make our time together well worthwhile. Now, because there is no Q&A, I have received questions from the organizers, which represent, I believe, questions that they anticipate you would want answers to. And indeed, actually, it could be questions that some of you in the audience have actually sent in ahead. What I will do is that I'll weave your questions into the narrative. And so hopefully I will address, one, two, or even more of the issues that you may have come here, seeking answers for. So here we go. Now, look, you are theming, or you've themed this particular year's summit, doing it afraid. And there is a strong entrepreneurial aspect to that which, you want to discuss at this summit. Given the fact that your organization comprises thousands of retail pharmacy businesses, some, I would say, in the SME category, certainly a number have grown beyond SME. I've seen strong chains and are in themselves, emerging businesses. One of the things that is common to members of this audience, I'm speaking now about retail pharmacy owners, is that you must have a very strong entrepreneurial characteristic within you, because that's the very nature of the business model. Retail pharmacies are run either as, a single store business, which you own, and you perform the dispensing of medicines, to the public, or a chain of these businesses, or indeed you install the model into some other retail business, such as supermarket chain, or even the forecourt of a retail petrol business or something like that. Now, and then you then ask yourself the question, okay, what this man, Aigboje Aig-Imoukhuede, what qualifies him to speak to true entrepreneurs like you? And indeed, actually, when you think about, the nature and concept of entrepreneurship, it wasn't something that I would say I was born into. My background is at birth, my parents were civil servants, and indeed, for the better part of my adolescent years, both my parents were civil servants. As far as I was concerned, the strongest and the most capable Nigerians, served their country in public service. And that was the ideal, career for somebody who felt, they had something to contribute intellectually and in other ways, to the building of society. Now, in the mid 70s, we began to have our economic challenges, and indeed, the return to civilian rule in 1979, and the poor or gross mismanagement of the economy, which led to the structural adjustments, became a shock to me, in the sense that one terrible aspect of the adjustment was the decimation of our civil service, both in terms of the reward system for civil servants and just the investment or lack of investment that took place in the civil service after that adjustment. And for a child who had grown up with so much pride in the civil service, and wanting, actually, I'm sure, to work in that context, I resolved that I was not going to work for the civil service. Nonetheless, professionally, I chose to pursue a career in law. And that was because I wanted to be part of a multinational. If it wasn't the civil service, which other uncles or aunties did I admire? It was, those of them who had risen to the tops of multinationals, tobacco companies, and breweries, and fast-moving commercial good businesses, etc. And I noticed that for many of them, they had a legal background. So my ambition, actually, from the time I was in university, was to go work for, maybe UAC or something like that, and rise to the top, because I had seen Nigerians and Africans, rise as CEOs of these organizations. When I was doing my youth corps, or just before youth corps, a number of my friends went into banking, and I'm talking about the Yopi merchant banks, and told me all about it, Chase, IMB, and so on. And so I resolved, well, let me join them, and that's why I decided to go into banking. No aha moment as to what banking meant or would mean for me as a career. As far as I was concerned, you had banks that operated almost like multinationals. I'm talking then about the merchant banks that had a significant foreign influence at birthing of those, or formation or foundation of those institutions. So I went into Continental Merchant Bank, and there my banking career started. I made a switch from being a lawyer after 2 years into core banking when I moved to GTB, and I rose very, very fast in Guarantee Trust Bank. I joined Guarantee Trust Bank in 91, and basically by 2000 or thereabouts, I had made executive director. And the Guarantee Trust Bank story, very entrepreneurial, great story, and built in a very short space of time one of Nigeria or Africa's, really, really strong corporate success stories. That success story was also my success story, because I rose very fast within one of the most respected institutions, in Nigeria at the time. Now, by the time I became an executive director, and in my book, Leaving the Tarmac, it's one of the first things that you are confronted with, the fact that I'm having a conversation with my mother, my dearly departed mother, around my state of mind, and the fact that I wasn't very happy, which she couldn't really come to terms with, given that God had blessed my career in every respect up to that point in time. And my mother, God bless you, was like, go sort yourself. God bless her, sorry. It was go sort yourself out too, because I can't understand you. Now, I couldn't even understand myself. That's why I wasn't happy. And it actually took me going to Harvard Business School for a few months. And my late brother-in-law, who just finished his MBA at Harvard, kind of could read through my state of mind. And he gave me this book called Buyout. And I urge you to go, read it. It's really a book that was written by another, Harvard MBA, and he MBA alumni, and he basically says in that book that, look, there are two types of high-performing individuals in any company. Those who are entrepreneurial and want to make their career within that company, and another type who will really insist on independence. And independence meaning that you want to influence the decisions that direct your company, but as important as that is, you really want to share in the ownership, results of your decisions. And if you're that type of individual, you would really be in a state of disequilibrium until you did the necessary thing, which is to buy out, the existing owners and own the company. And once I read that book and I read it and read it again, the book is by a guy called Rick Rickerston. I decided I was going to buy my own bank. And when I decided that, and this was about 2001, 2000, the first thing I had to do was find a partner. And the reason why I wanted to do this in partnership with my ideal business soulmate, so to speak, was the reasons were twofold. The first was that I am very, very much legacy, very legacy driven. And the notion of doing something simply for it to last 10 years or 20 years or even 30 years does not excite me. The thing that most caught my mind in life, the books I read were about institutions, businesses, establishments that have lasted centuries. JP Morgan, Rothschild, if I'm talking about banking, Walmart, and so on. And you'll be surprised that even the likes of, the technology companies such as Microsoft and so on, clearly are on their way to become century-old companies, 100 years and more, unless something really catastrophic, happens. So that's the kind of ambition that I have. I have a very long-term orientation. And so, look, as we will find about the reasons that drive succession, succession planning was very much in my mind. And I felt that in the Nigerian context, the one true way to ensure, sensible succession was to have a partner from day one. And if anything happened to me, the dream wouldn't die because my partner would continue with the dream. And the other thing, of course, for a partner is that if you understand the business and the sector that you're going into, you don't need a genius to tell you that 4 eyes are better than 2. And 2 heads are better than 1, if they are very competent heads, that is. And so in choosing and selecting a partner, I looked for somebody who I was completely confident in his or her abilities as a banker. And also, very importantly, I was completely confident about what would happen if I wasn't around, in terms of how they would drive, the institution, the values, the legacy that is very important to me. Would they continue to live it? And I found that person in Herbert Wigwe. And I was lucky that I didn't have to look too far. I didn't have to go too far either, in terms of finding people that, or looking for somebody and ending up with somebody that I didn't know, or whose DNA was different from mine. And I will come back to the notion of what my DNA is and how it's going to be important to you to be very clear what your DNA is, as an entrepreneur. Anyway, we bought our own bank in 2002, which is Access Bank. I tell people that the Access Bank we bought is in the Access Bank, I left in 2013, and certainly is in the Access Bank, you have today. When I say I left, I retired from running the bank in 2013. So we bought the bank, and in 2002, I was CEO, Herbert was deputy CEO. He was my deputy, we were partners. So we ran the bank together as managers, and of course, we owned the bank together. We actually owned, in the first year of it, as much as 50% of the bank. And it was truly a leap of faith in God and leap of faith in our abilities, because Access Bank wasn't the most attractive of the 90 or so banks, in existence at the time. Banking in Nigeria can be a high mortality business, even actually professionally. And Access Bank had its own fair share of troubles over time. So it wasn't really an attractive institution to buy on the face of it. But it did have a number of things, going for it. It was quoted on the exchange. It had a decent technology, even if it was poorly implemented, which was FlexCube. Its board comprised of gentlemen of repute, its chairman Ayo Oni and so on, who could add value to the business. And so there were a number of things going for it. I guess the weaknesses were more in terms of the business model, the value system that permeated the institution in terms of the value system required to run a bank at the time, and things like that, the quality of people and so on. But the story then continued from there into defining our business model, coming up with the vision and mission. In other words, what I would say, the corporate philosophy that would drive the institution, making sure that it was, very, very compelling, recruiting, worldwide, really, really strong world-class talent, fixing a number of the things that, needed to be fixed, such as the brand, technology, and so on. We had brought in capital, so we didn't need capital immediately, but we still needed a bit of capital. And, we called it our 10-point, transformation agenda. And we said to the market then that in 5 years, we would go from what was maybe 80 out of 90 banks into top 10. And I remember that presentation. We did it at the stock exchange, and people were looking at us like madmen. Not because they felt that we couldn't do it, but I think more, in 5 years, what about all those banks in front of you? Would they just be looking at you and so on? We're very confident, and I can tell you that we seize every opportunity. So if you think about this, doing it afraid, there was no doubt that we had people who were scared of our ambitions. We were not scared, and I'll come to why. But the key thing is that, I'll give you an example, was that when we set out this 10-point agenda, as we called it, and set objectives, and we shared them with the whole market. I remember one firm, PricewaterhouseCoopers, agreed to help us on technology consulting, but felt that our ambitions, our corporate ambitions, were too strong, and they turned down our request for them to support us in corporate strategy, because they just felt that, look, these guys are just too ambitious. And I thank God that we proved them wrong. They are still our friends. We still work with them. And they audit a number of businesses that are in our ecosystem. So there is no problem with partners who do not share your confidence. I mean, and it's not a bad sign. I just mentioned that because you say doing it afraid. Fear in the face of what appears to be really monumental challenges is a natural reaction of human beings, and anxiety that comes with taking on big, bold, hairy, audacious goals. It's a natural human reaction. So it's great that you have themed your summit this year around this notion of how do you do it, even though like most or all human beings, you should be afraid of doing it. And in my story, I would start simply by the following things. First of all, how much time do you spend thinking? Because contrary to what you may think, instinctively dealing with monumental challenges is not really a smart thing to do. And what I mean is not spending time on, I am all the things that I'm likely to fail at, or what are the consequences of failure. But how much time do you spend thinking about other people who have taken on similar challenges and succeeded? And for me, benchmarking and identifying precedents is one of the first and easiest ways to overcome your fears. Because one thing I can tell you, however monumental the challenge in front of you, there are others who have faced even far daunting challenges. And if you actually apply yourself towards learning about their stories, as simple as David and Goliath, there are so many lessons in that story. And, thinking through their stories and how, they overcame the various challenges they met, and applying them to your own context, is going to be very, 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 useful to you. So I spent a lot of time before we went off and bought this bank thinking about others who had done similar things in Nigeria and outside of Nigeria. And also I had a front seat actually, to seeing Fola and Tayo who had done it themselves. So by the time I looked through these experiences, I was quite clear that, daunting though, that which the journey we had set ourselves on was, there are ways for us to overcome most of the challenges that would come our way. And also, there was also an understanding and notion that there was an ultimate greater being called God. And if he was on your side, victory was assured. And maybe that was one of the things, actually, if you look at the time that I became closer and closer to God, was actually when we did the acquisition for Access Bank. So if you think it through, you're in a good position to realize a few things. And the first is this: look, when you look at opportunities and you're testing their viability, and I want to still do it in the context of doing it afraid, the more you have mastered a subject, the more you have domain expertise of something, all right, the better you are going to be at dealing with the challenges that come with it. So expertise reduces risk. Knowledge and insights help to mitigate and manage risk. So do the things you know. In other words, don't, as a pharmaceutical professional, say that what you are going to do is go and buy a bank and run it. In the same way that I don't think I should go and buy a pharmacy chain and run it. Okay? So your goals must be digestible. That doesn't mean that your goals should be pedestrian, or your goals, you should set low goals. Digestion is simply a question of your capability to digest something. Okay? There are some animals that have a capacity to digest other meals that are multiples of their size, and there are other animals that, on the other hand, despite their size, do not have the capacity to digest things, that are even, a fraction of their own large size. So in all things, your digestive ability, dictates, what you should take on. And I can tell you something about Access Bank, as we have proven along the way. We do have the ability to digest things that to others are fairly indigestible. And so you've got to build that strength. You have to build the strength to take on the opportunities that you see in any market. And if you think about my story, and I'll just talk about 3 opportunities, just to contextualize how opportunities come to you. So one opportunity was completely what I would term opportunistic. In other words, it's a seize the moment opportunity that comes because something takes place in your industry and there's a chance, there's an opening, and it's kind of maybe available to one or two people. You move fast, you take it, and it's transformative. And I remember that in 2002, the central bank had commenced a process of investigating banks who had misbehaved in the foreign exchange market, and basically banned 40 banks from the market. And before then, Access Bank, I always joke that our foreign currency trade lines by which we did, letters of credit and so on, the balance available for us to trade on and open LCs was less than Aliko Dangote's credit card limit at the time we came into the bank. But anyway, they banned 40 banks from some of the biggest banks in trade finance in Nigeria were on that list. And we came up with this solution. And we sold the solution to those banks and to the central bank. Should the customers of these banks suffer because of their misfortune? No. Is there a way that we could create a solution whereby those banks, their trade transactions are processed by a bank that was not affected by the ban, and so they could still preserve their customers? And the central bank, was supportive of the idea, and those banks were really grateful to us, with this proposition. The long and short is that 1 year after, from being a nobody as far as trade finance was concerned, Access Bank was one of Nigeria's top 5 trade finance banks. So again, that's completely opportunistic. We didn't plan that, we didn't expect it, but we were able to go in, dive in, and benefit from that. So another, of course, is the acquisition of Intercontinental Bank, which was something that was had much longer plans, and which played out as a result of the fact that we wanted to grow fast, and we had always said we were going to grow in 2 ways, both organically and inorganically. And so we set out this multi-year plan whereby we would build our abilities to do mergers and acquisitions, to integrate new businesses, etc. Had a playbook, built a model that we can roll out. It looks effortless, but there's a whole lot of work into it. And that's what's allowed us to take on the big Intercontinental transaction. Subsequently, just to show you how strong and robust that model is, even after I retired, you can find the Diamond Bank, acquisition or merger, and it continues and continues. And I would give you another and a last example of organic opportunity, sizing, which is now our value chain approach to doing business, and one whereby we would understand a particular value chain. Let's take the pharmacy value chain. Understand it as well as you, the business owner in that value chain, disaggregate it into its various pieces and look for every single opportunity in that value chain for us to reduce your cost of business or increase your revenue. And we did this, in telecoms and many other sectors. So for you, the entrepreneur in retail pharmacy business, this ability to spot opportunities, and they come in different forms, and is going to be key. And the difference between whether you are going to do it or not, whether you're afraid or not, is simply your level of preparation. We had this saying that we took from Andy Grove, who he ran Intel. I think he was the founder of Intel. Only the paranoid survive. So, we ran our business with the paranoia that opportunities will come, and, if you were not prepared, it would pass you by. And every day, we ran our business on the basis that, look, if the opportunity fits into our strategic purpose and intent, we must be able to take it on. And, fortune, favors the brave, but I think the brave that is prepared. So you prepare yourself, and you seize the moment when it comes. So then there is this question that you guys raised about transitioning and how do you move from one role to the other. And I want to distinguish between playing different roles simultaneously and transitioning to different roles throughout the course of your career. Now, the very nature of things is that in life, we are all destined to play multiple roles simultaneously. Let me give you an example. So, right now, you would term me maybe an investor. Let's use that. And at the same time, I'm a father, I'm a son, I'm a friend. I happen to be a director in for-profits and not-profits and so on. Now, what I'm saying is this, that your effectiveness today as an entrepreneur, or maybe even as the CEO of your retail pharma business, is going to be a function of how well you can multitask in the multiple roles that you play simultaneously. Okay? And this is going to be something that you cannot avoid throughout your life. Now, I do know that you were focused on transitioning to different roles, but let me also explain why I've decided to start with the multiple roles simultaneously. Most people live and die based on how effective they are in playing the multiple roles that life throws at them simultaneously. And I cannot tell you one thing though, that very rarely have I found any individual who is good at all the multiple roles they play at the same time throughout their life. In fact, actually, I don't think I've come across any individual like that. At every point in time, you'll find some things that you're not so good at. But the great thing is there are people where if you look at the portfolio of the multiple roles, you would say they do well. And doing well for me is not that, oh, okay, fine. In my role as, say, father, I am fantastic. And then, in the other multiple roles, I'm not so good. Or I am fantastic as a leader of government, and as a father, I'm really, really crappy. No. At the end of the day, the measure of, how well you have played your multiple roles, which you will continue to play, is simply going to be your state of mind, your happiness, and the happiness and equilibrium around you within not just your family, but also your circle of influence and so on. And it's always good to have that equilibrium because it makes you so much better at the other things that you have to do. So let's talk about the key thing, which is transiting from one phase in life to the other. So let's think about me: lawyer, banker, entrepreneur, philanthropist, and God will show me what comes after that. Now, and then of course, even for you as you listen to me, some of you may go on to second careers. A lot of people having run businesses go on to be teachers, some go on to be politicians, and so on. But in everything that you do, try and remain consistent and be true to yourself. You will have to change, and you can change yourself, okay? But do what you want, not what you think others want you to do. The worst thing in life is to be successful and unhappy. It's the worst thing in life. It's the worst condition in life, as far as I'm concerned, because when you are successful and you cannot enjoy it, it's almost like a curse. People who have transitioned successfully, and I hope they are happy in doing so, examples: Michael Jordan, Barack Obama, Olusegun Obasanjo. You think about Jordan, the sportsman, to the executive, to the, so you think about Obasanjo, soldier, farmer, president, statesman. And, it's not easy work, I can assure you. But again, the more you think about these things ahead, the better it is going to be for you. Then there's another issue, because I guess, it's very important to your business, is how do you attract and manage investment capital? Well, investment capital flows towards returns. The magnets for investment capital are what is termed in finance anticipated returns, expected returns. So if capital, right, finds what a return, okay, that is consistent with its expectations, it gravitates there. It's just natural. That's the way of finance and economics, okay? But then the issue about capital is that it's a very fickle, very, very fickle friend, very fickle resource, because it only stays where the actual returns match the expectation. So if you think about, for example, marriage, there are so many marriages where there's an expectation of the state of that marriage, before you get into it. And you get married and it's not exactly, what you expect. But you stay in it. That's how life is. Capital is not like that. If the expectation is not met, capital is going to divorce you, very, very fast. So how do you attract capital? The first way, and indeed the only way to attract capital, is to tell your story. Whether it's a country that is seeking investment capital, or it's a business, even a small pharmacy, you got to tell your story. And your story is going to be all about your track record. What is your track record? What have you done in the past? It's simple. How successful have you been in the past? Now, I'll also tell you a trick. Your track record, when it's a fantastic track record, is easy to share with people. But sometimes, and I've met people who may not have track records that are excellent, but these people are excellent in presenting their stories. So it's great if you have a track record, but it's even better where on top of that track record, you can present your story very well. And if you don't have a track record, at least, if you can work on how to present your story, it really helps. Next question I'm going to ask is, does your story match what you are asking for? Is there an alignment between the subject matter, or let's say, for example, what you want to put your money in, and, the story you're describing? I'll give you an example. So you are trying to attract capital to back your investment in creating this huge chain, okay? However, the story you're talking about is only a story of a small retail pharmacy, one single unit. The scale of the story, as well as the intended purpose, don't match in terms of amount and scale. So, you have to bear, these things in mind. Now, I'll have a simple message for you about managing capital. Look, the only way to manage capital is to perform and deliver returns. People who underperform and feel that, well, they are going to give a story each time to investors, I really don't have time for such entrepreneurs. I wish them all the best, and certainly there will be that section in this audience, but I'm not going to be able to help you there. The only way I know how to manage capital is to perform and deliver the returns that I promised those who I took the capital from. But I'll tell you something, even if your capital providers, your investors, don't like you, or they don't like your style, they will always have patience for the high performance investment. And but don't take your capital providers for granted, because if your conduct is unacceptable, their appetite for returns will increase. So if for whatever reason your conduct is unacceptable to your investors, they will adjust their expectation of returns. And so one way of managing your investors is to make sure that there's an alignment between your values and your conduct, and theirs. And always remember that the more and more, you expand, the amount of capital that you seek. So one of the great questions was, what are the keys to entrepreneurial success? And I'm not going to seek to arrogate to myself some special knowledge or have some wand, magic wand that opens up these keys to the things that you need to do and need to know to make a success of your business. And I'm only going to use my own experiences, kind of share what seemed to work for me. And the first thing is a healthy dose of luck. And I pray that for all of you who have done well, and for many of you who will do well in the businesses that you are in, you don't begin to believe in your own hype and get carried away by your own success. I will come back to that. For me, you have to start with a vision, an ability to visualize your end goals and to be able to articulate your vision in a compelling manner. What does success look like, and how do you translate this success in a way that others will buy into it is key, because at the end of the day, that is the only source of motivation for you and the rest of your team, particularly when things are not going as well as you thought they would. It's the vision that enables you continue to climb the mountain even when the going gets tough and the obstacles are daunting. So you have to have a vision. You have to be able to translate that vision into a language that your stakeholders, your investors, your employees, your partners, and even your customers understand. The next thing that worked for us was discipline and focus. This is where I'm going. And let's assume that it's to climb the top of this mountain. It is discipline and focus that's going to keep you climbing in the way and manner that you have to climb to get to the top of that mountain. If not, I know so many people who you haven't gotten to one quarter, you say, oh yeah, leave this mountain, I'm going to focus on the next mountain, and then the next mountain, and you end up, not climbing anything. So focus and discipline is what keeps you from deviating from the path that works. It also keeps you from peaking too early, and it ensures you don't take excessive risk. Partners and employees. I told you about the story at the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, where I said, look, I need a partner, and I went out looking for a partner, and I thank God, that I found Herbert. You have partners. You also have partners in that sense, co-owners, but also you have partners who could be senior and junior employees. I will tell you one of the greatest partners of Warren Buffett, and that was his secretary, who I think they worked together for well over 60 years. She may even still be working with him today. Must be one of the wealthiest secretaries in the world. But the trust, between partners, employees, and so on is so key to whether you're going to succeed in this entrepreneurial journey. There were times when I almost died, and I'm not talking about I'm not drawing an analogy between the stress, and so I actually almost physically lost it. And some of my partner Herbert gave me blood, so it's trust is the key. Okay, is if there's one thing I can tell you, trust is very important, and it is that trust that leads to healthy relationships amongst partners and employees. Now, one thing I can tell you is this: for an entrepreneur, if you are not fair and generous, you're going to have a bit of a tough time in life. And I know entrepreneurs who are not fair and generous, and they still, but if you are not ready to reward people based on the principle of fairness, you're not going to be very happy, and you're not going to have happy people around you. And what is fairness? It's just simply about this. Do you pay people, and I'm saying the totality of rewards now, based on what they deserve, or do you pay people based on what you think they are worth receiving? So I'll give you an example. So let us say that I made you a promise at the beginning of this journey that I'd give you 2% of everything that we made. And when we started, 2% of everything that we made was 10 million naira every year. And one day, 2% of everything that we make becomes 5 billion naira every year. And you say, I have 100 million, do this person now. Or 250 million, do this person now. Okay? Now, what type of individual are you? Okay? Are you going to pay what people deserve, or are you going to pay what you think they're worth receiving? Reflect on that. Communication, timely and honest delegation. Timely and honest communication is key. I was jumping the gun about the final thing, but what I've found is that, look, I'm as transparent and open as I can be, and it served me well. You think about something comes up, don't let it fester. Immediately, you raise it, and you thrash it out. Candor is fundamentally important, particularly given that we are in a society where candor seems to have been lost. And then the final thing around keys is the notion of delegation. Look, you can't do everything, and you can never be the best at everything, or even good at everything. So be ready to delegate. And I'm not saying delegate only the things you think you should delegate. Delegate the things you have to delegate. So let me round back to the issue of luck. And I'll tell you that I owe my luck to the Most High God. My life has had too many accidents of good fortune, being in the right place at the right time. I've had revelations of things to come. I've met with favor and protection from wicked, and so it's not me. I can tell you, it's the Most High God. And if there's one thing that I will propose to you is that make your first business partner the Most High God. There was a question on why do Nigerian businesses fail. I'll tell you something interesting. According to the Small Business Association of America, 20% of small businesses in America fail in the first year, and in the next 5 years, another 50%. So look, 70% of small businesses in America fail in the first 5 years. Nigeria's business failure rates are very similar, give or take 10% here or there. I mean, what I'm saying basically is that, look, entrepreneurship is not easy, and starting a business does not mean in any way that you are guaranteed to succeed. But then what the reasons for failure in America and Nigeria are also very similar. But what the books don't tell you is that the statistics change when you are going to your second and third business. Then the rates of success are much higher. Okay, so again, this notion of track record and try again, the successful entrepreneur is usually not the first time entrepreneur. It's the entrepreneur who has tried, failed, got up again, tried again, failed, got up again and tried, and by the third and fourth time, then hits it. But the key difference between Nigeria and most other markets is the cost of doing business. In Nigeria, it's extremely high. So beyond your pharmacy business, you have to be your own power supply business. You have to be your own security business. Transportation and logistics is hell. But common reasons for failure between the US and Nigeria and other places, a lack of skill. So you must have skill. Remember, do what you know how to do. Access to capital and vision and focus. Succession planning, and I've spoken about that at various points in time during this keynote address. Look, it is inevitable that you will have to face succession planning. Why? Look, you're going to retire just simply because you can't live forever, and you're not going to be that young man or woman with all that energy forever. One time you may end up with a walking stick. Disability may occur. We are all human beings made of flesh and blood, and health reasons, we may not be able to do what we were able to do much earlier on. And then death, inevitable for all of us. So it's folly not to have a plan. You must have a plan. So what are your options for dealing with succession plan? And I'm speaking now from your perspective as the owner of a retail pharmacy business, whether it's at scale or one single store. Well, the first thing is to have a co-owner, and sell to that co-owner, or be prepared to sell to the co-owner. Another thing, you could do is, of course, pass it on to family members, so you can bequeath your business to family members. Another option is, to sell to a key employee, or to sell to your employees as a group. Then, of course, you can sell to an outside party, somebody who may be in the business or may not be in the business, but you convince to buy your business. And then the last I will talk about is when you corporatize your business, which is basically you move from being a one-man business, however big it is, okay, to a company where you are prepared to cede all or parts of the ownership and control to other shareholders. Whichever is better depends on your circumstances. Look, let me give you an example. You may not have a child, or you may not have a trusted family member that you are prepared to bequeath your legacy onto. If that's the case, then forget it. The notion of family succession is not something you should even think or pursue. And there are different ways of ensuring that your legacy continues, without necessarily having your family members run your business. Succession planning is mission critical. One of the things that I did was set up a family office right from the very word go, when our partnership started in 2002, that looks after, the business interests of Herbert and I. And most of these issues around succession planning and these options that, I've listed for you are things that the family office, caters for on an ongoing basis. Family office is really grown from a one-person family office now into one that can match family offices, single family offices anywhere in the world. So, if you get to the point where you can afford, the family office solution, single family office solution, I invite you to do so. It's worked for me. And, you also have multiple, what they call multi-family offices. So, my thought was that, 30, 45 minutes would be round about the ideal time for us to have this conversation, given the format that it is taking. And so I'm going to begin to bring us home now. One of the other really great questions I was asked is, what opportunities do I see in the retail pharmacy industry from an outsider's point of view? Because I am an outsider. From what I understand, we have over 1,500 registered retail pharmacy stores in Nigeria. I also understand that the pharmacist per capita ratio in Nigeria is 1 qualified pharmacist to 20,000 people. And in most other peer countries to Nigeria, so countries that are in similar economic circumstances as us, it's an 8 to 20,000 ratio. So this tells me a number of things. First of all, this is clearly an underserved market. So there's room for new players, and certainly there must be room for growth and scale. And looking from the outside, these are the things I see. Obviously, the most obvious one is opportunities for chain models. In other words, to go from to build scale, really, through chains. Nigeria, the size of Nigeria, population-wise, and if you look at the physical geography of our country, if you look at the geography of our country, you should have chains that have 1,000 stores, maybe even as much as 5,000 stores. So that is the scale opportunity that hits me immediately. Now you are beginning to have emerging retail businesses, supermarket chains and so on. So the supermarket partner model, I think, is also something that I would look at very, very strongly. You can get the sense that for me, scale is very important. Now, one of the things that you need for scale is technology. And I think that when I look at I also spent some time actually going into on the internet to study what is out there in terms of the type of customer experience for somebody who wants to use a pharmacy, and I see scope for transformation. So if I look at the front end marketing and customer experience, for the consumer of your services, I don't think is anywhere where it can be or it should be, given where technology is in Nigeria and given what happens, internationally. And I think that there's a huge disruption opportunity there as well. Now, look, listen, I'm an M&A person, so the aggregator and roll-up play, I think, is also a viable opportunity. When I say aggregator and roll-up play, is when you look at people who have built some scale, maybe 10, 20 stores, and you say, okay, let's put them together and create a 500, 1,000, store footprint, maybe over 5 years. So I think that that is very important that I bring that to bear. So those are some of the immediate opportunities that I see, and I see huge growth to come in this sector. Retail is Nigeria's sweet spot. 200 million people growing at 3% per year. It's just too much of a market to ignore. And irrespective of, the sad thing is, irrespective of the challenge around the wealth of the country and the economic circumstances of the country, I think the largest spend by Nigerians is still on medicine, and a lot of that is out-of-pocket expenditure. So you almost have an assured market, and so I want you guys to grow and grow and grow. Really seize the moment. I understand, as I round up, that Net Pharmacy and First Call Pharmacy, did something really wonderful, and they bought a number of my book, Leaving the Tarmac. Well, very kind of you, and I think you want to distribute them to participants. I want to appreciate you personally for that very kind gesture. I actually ask anybody here who feels that they need the inspiration of an entrepreneurship story or an entrepreneurial story to get a copy of Leaving the Tarmac. When I got copies of books like those, like I've written, they were quite useful, for my journey. The purpose of the book was to influence entrepreneurs like you, and hopefully, give you nuggets that, would prove useful as you embark on your journey. This is where I want to stop, and I do hope that the time that we spent together is worthwhile. I've really enjoyed this talk. I've learned from it, as much as I've enjoyed also delivering it. God bless you all, and enjoy the rest of the summit. Goodbye.